How many people from Tulsa, Oklahoma? Nobody? Anybody from Oklahoma? All right. Yeah. That's where all the big mountains are. Yeah. All right, so it's good to be here. You saw that I'm a mountain climber. And what was different about my mountain climbing? I had one leg, right? And which leg was it? Left? Right. It is the right leg. This one. Now y'all are probably looking at it going, oh, that poor guy. I mean, he only has one leg. That's not true. I got about 6 or 7 of these. Just depending on what I want to do. All right, so how did it happen? I was 14 years old. I was back behind a boat. And I was water skiing. Anybody go water skiing out on the lakes? Yeah. Right? Okay. And I was back behind the boat, and it accidentally malfunctioned and slipped in reverse. I saw the boat coming back towards me. Of course, I tried to swim out of the way, and I started yelling, "Stop! Stop the boat!" But nobody could hear me. The engine was so loud, and I could see this propeller this big just churning underneath the water, and all the water was spitting up. So I turned one more time to try and get out of the way. And then as I looked over my shoulder, it was right on top of me, and then, bam, I was hit. And both of my legs got sucked into the propellers. And I could feel the propellers as it was crawling up my legs and tossing me back and forth underneath the water, and I was struggling to try and keep my head above water just so I could get some air. And then all of a sudden, all this chaos, this craziness just went quiet. It was silent. As I looked up in the sky, I saw silver dots flying everywhere. This dark green Oklahoma water had now turned to a very bright red, like what you see in the movie Jaws. And at that point, it was almost as if I had a choice, and I don't want to, have a theological debate here. This is just what I felt at the time, was that I could stay or I could die. It was my choice. And I chose to live. Right at that point, my dad reached down, he grabbed me by the life jacket, yanked me out of the water, and that was when I realized how badly I'd been injured. Have you ever had something happen in your life where just a split second, everything was going great, and then all of a sudden, your entire life changes? And that's what had happened to me. And I didn't know how bad it was until they pulled me out of the water. My entire left thigh had been ripped open down to the bone. The backside of my right leg was missing. A few pieces of muscle hanging down. My knee had been slashed in half. So they were throwing me in the bottom of the boat, blood squirting out like a little Texas oil well. They're throwing the towels on me, trying to stop the bleeding and soaking them up. They rushed me to the dock. Unfortunately, there happened to be a doctor and a nurse there. By the way, isn't this a great after-lunch talk?
Amen.
Okay, so, by a miracle, there happened to be this nurse and a doctor there. They gave me some first aid, and even though it was 100 degrees out, extremely hot, very humid, I was shaking like I was in a blizzard. I was so cold. I was losing so much blood. They got me in the ambulance. They rushed me to a small town hospital. They did what they could. The doctor said, "Look, we got to get him to a hospital that has a better, facility to be able to do something with this kid." They say, "We're loading me up in the ambulance." He was overheard saying to one of his staff, "I don't think this kid's going to make it." Well, as they were taking me to an ambulance to another hospital, it had already been about 2 hours since I'd been hit in the middle of that lake. But you know how they tell you that when you've been injured, your body just kind of shuts down so you don't feel the pain. Have you heard that before? They lied. Okay? I felt the pain. But I kept hanging on. And sometimes in life, man, you want to let go. It's so close. You just sometimes want to give up on things. But making those little decisions and pulling that power of Christ is within you at those moments is so key. You've got to realize that that power within you is so much stronger than any challenge that is going on in the world. And at that point, they got me to the hospital, wheeled me into the emergency room, and I died twice. Once in the emergency room, and once on the operating room table. I flatlined. Fortunately, they're able to fill me back up with blood. They got my heart going, and I survived. Well, the next day I woke up and I felt that I had both my legs. I thought, hey, everything's going to be okay. But I didn't know that they'd told my parents that if I survived, I would probably never walk again. Well, I struggled in that hospital. You know, I was asking the same question in the hospital bed that I was asking when they had pulled me out of the water. I was saying, why me? Except when they pulled me out of the water, I was screaming, why? Why me? As I was bleeding. Have you ever asked that question when something goes on in your life? Why? Why are you going through this? And sometimes we get these answers right away. Sometimes, as in my case, it was going to be almost 20 years later before I would figure out and I would know how the Lord would be able to take this situation and not only make it a blessing for me, but make it a blessing for others. So as I struggled in the hospital, they finally let me out after about 30, 40 surgeries. I was in a wheelchair, then I was up on crutches. Then I had to wear a metal brace because my leg had nerve damage and I couldn't feel my leg was paralyzed below the right knee. Now, have you ever seen the movie Forrest Gump? You know, that kind of metal brace. Anybody seen Forrest Gump? Okay. By the way, if you're ever watching that movie, look at the hospital scene where Forrest got shot in the buttocks. Remember that? In the Vietnam War, then they take him and he starts playing ping pong, but somebody hands him a ping pong ball while he's in the hospital. Well, that's me sitting right next to Tom Hanks, and we're actually filming that movie in West Hollywood, and I had no idea at the time how big it was going to be. But anyhow, so we went on back to school. I don't know what I said, but okay. So I went on back to school, and when I went back to school, because my leg was paralyzed, I'd be walking along the grass or the playground at school, and a nail or a piece of glass might go in my foot, and I wouldn't even realize it until the end of the day. And I'd pull my shoe off, and I have a nail stuck in my foot. This would get infected. Eventually, it got so bad, I had a huge hole in the bottom of my foot about the size of a silver dollar, and it wouldn't heal because I didn't have good circulation like a diabetic. And then the bone got infected, started chipping out. And the doctors finally gave me a choice and said, Todd, we don't know how we can fix this leg, but we're going to give you two choices. Now, I like having choices, especially when they're two good choices. You can go vacation here, you can go vacation there, or if it's pretty obvious, like, hey, this is a really good choice, and this is a really bad choice, and I know, I don't want to take that one, I want this one. Well, this was two tough choices. And sometimes in life, you're going to have to make a choice between two tough choices. Two choices you really would rather not have to make either one. And in this case, I was having to make one where it was either I could save my life by having my leg amputated, or I could try and save my leg, but it could cost me my life. So I decided to go ahead and have my right leg amputated. That was a pretty tough choice. You can't go back on some of the choices you make on life. This is one of them. I wasn't going to just go get, whoops, I made a mistake. Go ahead and put my leg back on, right? So, I went into the hospital. I remember the night before my operation, I was sitting there praying. I said, God, just heal me. Get me out of this. And at that point, something else came to me. And it was, Todd, what's really important for you to realize is to have me with you every step of the way. Because you've had challenges before in your life. This is one more challenge you're having today, and you're going to have other challenges as you go through life. What's most important is that you have me with you in every challenge, in every step of the way. So, the next day, I went into the operating room. I said, I'm going to find out if this power that Christ has, will it get me through this? Will it really get me through this? So, I was wide awake. I didn't even have an aspirin in me. I had them numb me below the waist. They fired up the saw, and they amputated my right leg while I was wide awake. But I learned something, and I don't suggest other people do this. But I did learn something that day. That the power of Jesus within you and within your life is much stronger than any challenge that might be facing you in the world. Any obstacle that comes up against you, with His strength, you can overcome anything. Well, when I finally got out of the operating room, they took me back and they gave me a new leg. Might as well have been from a tree trunk with a rubber foot slapped on the bottom of it. It was horrible. I couldn't even walk. Every time I took a step, I'd fall flat on my face. But I knew one thing. Remember the Chinese proverb, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with what? One step. First step, that's right, one step. So I took my one step. Fell on my face, screamed, got my Demerol shot. A couple hours later, I took my next step. And I kept doing this until I learned to walk again. Well, I went on back to school, got my undergraduate degree, got my graduate degree in counseling psychology, worked as a psychotherapist in Southern California. Anybody from Southern California? All right, so you know, Lord knows they need all the psychotherapists they can get. So I was working out there, and then this group came to me, and they asked me to go climb to the highest elevation of all 50 states. They were looking for 5 disabled people. And so I was picked, and I used to be an Eagle Scout, and I liked hiking and camping, but I hadn't done it for many, many years. So I trained that year. I started running again. I got to where when I started running, I was running about, 10 or 12 steps before I had to stop. My legs were like noodles. But within 3 months, I kept going, and I was up to running 12 miles without having to stop after not running for 16 years. Do we have any runners in here? A couple of them? Okay, good. Because you know what I found out about running? I hate it. I hate running. But I like hiking and camping. So I continued training, and then a month before we were supposed to go, they called the expedition off. They said we didn't get enough funding. The corporate sponsorship didn't go through. Now, have you ever worked your tail off for something, and then, right at the last minute, have somebody else pull the plug on it? And go, what was that all about? Where do I go from here? And as I was hanging up that phone, a little voice went off in me, and it was like intuition or something. It said, Todd, do this climb on your own. Well, I never organized an expedition. But while holding down a full-time job, I trained, I organized an expedition, and I got enough money to be able to pull it together. A lot of times people go, oh, you can't do anything without the money. You know what? I went ahead and took off on this expedition selling T-shirts for $12. And sometimes some of you in here are going to have a situation in your life where you're going to have to raise money for whatever it is you want to do. And I went ahead and took those steps, and I sold maybe a couple $100 worth of T-shirts. And then I went and I started my climb. And right after, within a week or so after I did it, I had some friends that were selling these $12 T-shirts, and this guy came by and he said, what's this about? And he said, well, my friend Todd, he's trying to climb to the highest elevation of all 50 states. And he's a leg amputee. He goes, you know, I like that idea. Call me at my office tomorrow at 800, let's see, ABCDEFG. You may not remember that number, but it was John Shanahan, the CEO of Hooked on Phonics. He bought his first t-shirt and only t-shirt for $50,000. Funded the entire climb and never asked for anything. So have faith. God does know your financial needs. Okay? I know, he's probably going, oh boy, I could use it right now. It will come. It will come, believe. Okay, so, now, so I'm headed off on what was known as the Summit America Expedition. So you all want to go do some mountain climbing with me real quick? Yeah? Okay. Let's see. I guess you can see okay with the lights up here. If I can get this figured out. The name of the climb was called the Summit America Expedition. The idea behind it was to climb to the highest elevation of all 50 states, something only 32 people in the world had ever accomplished. Over 1,000 people have climbed Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world. A disabled person had never even been stupid enough to try this. But that was where I came in. So I was going to try and be the first one. The world record was 101 days. Of course, that's set by a two-legged mountain climber. Whoops. If I can get this going here. Where's my help? Do I have technical people here? Okay. There we go. All right. Yep. Okay. Thank you, man. All right. No, it's still there.
Just stay there, Keene.
Push that one. Okay. Okay. So I had to drive over 24,000 miles. That's more than around the world. I had to go to the highest point of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri. No big deal in Kansas. But I also had to go to the highest point of Alaska and Hawaii. The only two states I could fly to. This is the leg that I wore. It had a little shock absorber on it. Now since then, I actually, you notice I don't even have a boot. I took the sole of a boot and I glued it onto the bottom of my artificial leg because I wanted to keep it as light as possible. Some people cut the handles off their toothbrushes. Some people don't even take toothbrushes. I don't talk to them very much. This leg here, they gave it to me the day I was heading out. And it was brand new technology. I said, hey, how's it going to work? I'm going to be in minus 50-degree weather. I'll be living on glaciers for several weeks. But they said, well, we don't know, but give us a call. You know, tell us.
Wow.
So, and since then, I actually have my own patent on an artificial leg that I invented, which is like this one here. It has the shock absorption, and it rotates from side to side. And they now sell that around the world. So if you have a good idea, pursue it. All right, then I had to go through all kinds of weather, thunderstorms, hail, lightning. I had to dodge tornadoes in Tennessee, Alabama. Sometimes the trails were pretty well marked, sometimes they weren't. I think this has a laser on it. I don't know for sure where it is. So I'm going to walk back here. This is one guy right here. He fell, and that rock caught him. If that rock wouldn't have got him, he would have slid 2,500 feet, slammed into the rocks below. Wow. So my climbing partner and I, we just kind of looked at each other like, what do you think we were thinking? You know, like, oh my God, I'm so glad he didn't fall. Thank you, Jesus. No, that's not it. We were saying, I'm not going to go get him. You can. So here we've climbed to the highest point of Kansas, Mount Sunflower. We'll come back to that one. But other times they were much higher, like Mount McKinley, well over, this one's actually over 20,000 feet, 20,320. Now how would we know when Todd was at the top of a mountain? Well, I'd be hiking up, and they have these little markers called USGS, or United States Geological Survey markers. So I would put my foot on that, take my picture, time and date, stamp the photo, and that would prove that I was at that high point. Also, very few people have the same serial number on their right foot that I do. This is the highest point in Delaware. It's actually in the middle of a street. Some of you laughed, but it was a very busy street. Saw lots of animals. You recognize this one? Moose, right? Now this happened to be a friendly snake, but I figured if he would have bit me in the leg, he would have been in for a bigger surprise than I. Sometimes they weren't as friendly. Rattlesnakes. Now this happens to be baby bear, which means who's nearby? Mama bear. So we got out of there as quickly as possible. It could be very dangerous. Wild horses. I could actually go up and feed these horses in Virginia, but in Nevada I had wild mustangs that reared up and threatened to charge me. Now the one animal is a mountain climber you don't want to run across. I was hiking and I came along this trail and I came around the curve and there it was sitting right at the edge of the trail. All I could do was just freeze. I didn't look at it, made no eye contact, slowly backed up. What do you think it was?
Skunk.
No, it wasn't a skunk. That would be nice. No, it was actually longer than a mountain lion and bigger than a grizzly. No? Okay, it was the North American rock lizards.
What the heck? Mercy.
Will the seniors help the freshmen out on this one?
Yeah.
Oh, brutal. It's a painted rock. Okay. Okay, so from there I went and climbed to the highest point in Texas, Guadalupe Peak. All right, anybody ever been out to extreme western Texas? Up by Guadalupe? You have? Okay. If you haven't been out there, it's very, very hot. It was over 118 degrees when we were climbing. Also, there's a lot of beautiful open range. I got a picture of some of it for you.
Open.
And once I got to the top, I put these little rocks back behind me because if I would have rolled out of bed, it would have been about 250 feet before I would have hit the floor that night. Now, here is, I thought it was funny too. Okay, where the mask is. All right, now, this is Mount Sunflower again, the highest point in Kansas. Now you can see the railroad spikes that they made the sunflower out of. There's a skull of an antelope at the top of that tree limb. But something very historic happened at some of these high points. Like the highest point of New Jersey has this big lighthouse there, actually it looks like a Washington Monument, at High Point State Park. Then in Massachusetts they have a large lighthouse, cement lighthouse on top of Mount Greylock. Well, something very important happened out here in western Kansas at the highest point of Kansas, Mount Sunflower. Anybody have any idea what it was? No? Okay. Well, they have a plaque that tells you about it. Not a lot going on out there. So from there I went and climbed to the highest point of the western states. The eastern states, they were smaller. But the western states, they get a lot more difficult. Many of them well over 14,000 feet. You have to watch out for the snow and the rock avalanches. You also have to be careful for the afternoon thunderstorms and the lightning that can hit you. And a lot of people do die from lightning every year from hiking in the mountains. Of course, you have to have really good balance and good climbing skills. Now, this is Keene's Peak. Anybody have any idea where Keene's Peak is the highest point of? Nevada? Nope. I'll give you another clue. When you go up to the top of a lot of these mountains, they have something called a register. It's a tube that has some, like a spiral notebook in it. You write your name, the date, some little saying, where you're from, and it's kind of a way of saying, I was at the top of this mountain. Well, Keene's Peak not only has a register at the top of the mountain, it also has the Book of Mormon. Utah. Right, very good. I was speaking in Salt Lake last week. They had no problem with that one. All right, from there I went to hike to the highest point of Montana. I've hiked in 3 miles here. I got a grizzly bear about a quarter mile ahead of me. Hopefully not going to come around and have lunch. I went up to the top of Froze to Death Plateau. It's about 12,000 feet up. You are totally exposed to the weather here. It is very, very dangerous. Lightning, the thunderstorms, the wind, the hail, the snowstorms, all can hit you at any time during the year. So we were totally exposed. And then from there, I'm going to hike along that ridge to the top of Granite Peak, the highest point of Montana. Give me an idea what that climb looks like when you're actually up there. See if you can spot the two climbers. You see them? I'm the lower arrow, and that's my climbing partner right above me. We had to climb wall after wall like this to be able to get to the top of Granite Peak. Here I have a couple of thousand feet of air below me, no rope. "13,000 feet, again, a couple of thousand feet below me without a rope. Ropes are heavy, and I try not to carry them if I can get away with it. I literally almost have a mile of a fall below me on this one, about 4,000 to 5,000 feet. All right, from there I went to Gannett Peak, the highest point of Wyoming. It's beautiful. It is heaven on earth. It is so beautiful. So I've hiked in 20 miles, crystal clear blue lakes, wildflowers everywhere, waterfalls coming off these beautiful peaks. Except right back there, those are the little peaks. I got to go up and over those. And while I'm doing it, I have to go through this really narrow band of snow where they lost a guy a couple of weeks ago due to an avalanche. And I'm up to my waist in snow just waiting for this dead guy to pop up and meet me face to face. But I come up and over, and I'm back on the snow fields, and that's me in the red for the top of Gannett Peak, the highest point in Wyoming. Now, you know there's several ways to get down a mountain, right? And they are? No, falling doesn't count. Right answer. Rappel, hike, right? Or sometimes what we do is we take a couple of steps and we slide on our rear end down the mountain. And this is called glissading. So what I do is I take my little ice axe here, see if y'all can see this, and I'll take this point right here and I start steering this point, I start steering my way down the mountain. And then, when I'm ready to stop, I take this edge right here, I dig it in like this, and I stop. Hopefully, right? You know how to use that? Okay. So, now if you're ever wondering, did I ever fall while I was climbing? Look at this ice axe. Does it look like I've ever fallen before? Yes. I have fallen many, many times. But the mark of a true winner is not whether or not you fall. The mark of a true winner is that you get back up. And I will tell you that the power that Christ gives you is not the kind of power that lets you get up 1 time, 3 times, or even 297 times. It's the kind of power that lets you get up every single time. And that's what you're made to be. You're the ones that everybody else is looking to. You're the ones that are going to have to get up. You're not going to be immune to some of the things that are going to happen in life that a lot of people, would like to avoid. It might hit you. It might not. I don't know. But the truth is that you've got that power within you. And people are going to be watching you every step of the way. And they're going to want to know, how do you handle it? How does somebody that has Jesus in their life, has Christ in their life, how do they handle that situation? How do they handle that death? How do they handle that injury? How do they handle that accident? How do they handle that financial loss? How do they handle that divorce, that separation, whatever it might be? So, But you have that power in you. You will handle it with love, and you will handle it as Christ would handle it. So, from there, I went to the top of Colorado. Oh, we got some Colorado people. Okay, very good. I love it there. Mount Rainier, state of Washington. Okay, it's a volcano, very majestic. Lots of crevasses. No big deal if you step in a crevasse and it's only a foot deep. But some of these crevasses can be hidden by snow and ice. You step in it and go, whoa! And you can be over a mile deep. And these people can disappear forever. That's why we have the ropes tied up to each other. I've gone through the cone of the volcano, and I'm standing on the true summit of Mount Rainier, over 14,000 feet. Mount Hood, normally you have a lot of snow and ice on Mount Hood. It's kind of like icing on a cake. Unfortunately, they didn't have it that year, so I had boulders the size of refrigerators coming down around my climbing. And I don't care if it's the size of a little pebble. When a rock comes whizzing by and hits you in the center of the head, it hurts. Here's Mount Whitney, the highest mountain in California, over 14,498 feet, highest mountain in the lower 48 states. Climbed that one during the day, got up there at night, put my sleeping bag on the highest rock I could find, and slept higher than anyone else in the United States that night.
I'm in.
In altitude. I heard that. I know what you were thinking. All right, the last climb, Mount McKinley. See those little brown mountains? That's the size of the ones in Colorado. Mount McKinley, over 20,320 feet, not only the highest mountain in North America and Alaska, but the entire North American continent. I mean, it's one of the 7 summits. It is extremely dangerous, not only because of its remoteness and its altitude, but because it has some of the worst weather of any mountain in the world. I had a good team. You'll need a good team when you go out to accomplish things in life. I had the current world record holder. I had the guy that trains the Army in mountaineering. We flew the airplane through One-Shot Pass. I had no idea why they called it that, didn't want to ask. Then we landed on the Hilton Glacier. Not uncommon for the plane to flip upside down. Then you crawl out, you got to flip the plane back over, put the people that are leaving the mountain back in it, and hopefully they won't hit one of those 17,000-foot mountains. Once we got there, we put snow walls around our tents just to keep the 100-mile-an-hour winds from blowing our tents away. It's so cold that while you're in there, when you breathe at night, you got a little oxygen or a little water in your breath. It goes to the top of the inside of the tent, freezes, and snows back down on top of you. Wow. So it actually snows inside your tent. Just some pictures of the mountain. Snow caves, had to watch out for it's so high up there that you get sunburn from the altitude, but also it bounces off the glacier, so you get sunburn inside your nostrils and also the roof of your mouth because you breathe through your mouth a lot because there's so little air up there, which makes it really inconvenient because how do you stay warm? By drinking hot chocolate with a sunburned mouth. I had to carry 65-pound backpacks. We had 25-pound sleds. We had to watch out for the crevasses below us and the avalanches from above. If that came down, it'd take a really big shovel to get you out of there. Now this, I guarantee, I don't care who the wealthiest Texan is, they do not have a view from their bathroom like we did at 14,000. Now from there, I went from 14,000 up to 16,000. I went through 2,000 feet of snow, rock, and ice. I come to this really steep little ledge. It goes down another couple of thousand feet. And then while I'm down there, they sit there and they say, we got to go up to 17,000. I'm like, we can't. I mean, something in me is telling me don't do it. They yelled at me, they screamed at me, called me every name under the book. You see that shovel? We carved a hole there. I had to go with my gut, my intuition. They kept yelling every name that they could think of at me until 10 hours later when a storm came in from the Bering Sea. And when it came in, it blew everybody off the mountain that had gone up to 17,000 where it was nice and flat where everybody was supposed to go. And they all had to bail off the mountain and forget about their summit attempt. And while they did, they had big, heavy packs. and I helped them unload them. Because when they came by my tent, I took all their gourmet food from them. And then we headed on up, and that was actually where I met a guy named Ron Gladden, who happened to be an Adventist, who happened to be the guy that said, "We got to write a book about this, Todd." And I said, "I don't think anybody even cares that I'm up here climbing." And he said, "No, I know that people know, they need to know this story." And because of him, he got Pacific Press to write a book, and literally millions and millions of people have been able to hear this story because of him. So, from there, climbed all night, climbed together as a team, and here we are at the very end of the climb. And I had 2 body bags dragged in front of me. One was a frozen climber hanging upside down on a rope. The other one, they found him sitting on a rock with a radio next to his head, frozen to death. And he was hired by the Park Service to teach safe climbing techniques. So this mountain could get anybody, no matter how good you thought you were. So here I am, about 20,000 feet. I kept taking one step, slamming my eyes out to the side of the mountain, going, "God, just give me one more step." Take 3 breaths because the oxygen's so thin. Take one more step. "God, please give me one more step." I kept doing that step after step until eventually I hit the top of North America at 20,320 feet. And the idea behind this climb, because I got to wrap it up, guys, is because I wanted to show that the power of Christ within you will give you the power that you need to overcome any challenge in your life. And every challenge that you have in your life is an opportunity for Him to shine, for Him to come through, to make you stronger, to make you wiser. Every challenge is an opportunity. Remember that. And every opportunity is going to have its challenges, but you can overcome them. And with His strength and with His power, there is nothing, no mountain greater than what you can stand on. You can do it. So with that, I wanted to also say, I did become the first disabled person to climb the highest elevation of all 50 states. Remember, only 32 able-bodied people have ever done it, right? Also, the world record was 101 days. Instead of doing it in 101 days, I ended up doing it in 66 days, 22 hours and 47 minutes. Thereby establishing the world record. And you, by 35 days, and becoming the only disabled person to hold an able-bodied world record in a sport. So remember this, the power of Christ is within you. People, because of the positions you have chosen, are going to be watching you go. Stand on top of those mountains, and I will see you at the top. God bless.